Welcome back. You are listening to the home of forbidden romances. Prepare yourself, because tonight's story will leave you breathless. The glass of the laboratory window didn't just break. It exploded inward with the force of a grenade, showering Lysander in a rain of glittering, lethal shards. He didn't scream. He didn't have the breath for it. He simply scrambled backward over the slick tiles, his heart hammering a frantic rhythm against his ribs that drowned out the wail of the facility's alarms. He had expected corporate espionage, perhaps a theft of his research, but he hadn't expected this. A massive hand, clad in tactical leather and smelling of gunpowder and ozone, reached through the smoke, seizing him by the collar of his lab coat before he could reach the emergency exit. "Got you," a voice growled, low and vibrating with a terrifying, inhuman resonance. Lysander twisted, his glasses skittering across the floor, and looked up into eyes that were not human. They were vertical slits of molten gold, set in a face that was strikingly handsome, yet undeniably feral. This was General Kalen of the Wolf Clan, the most feared military strategist in the United Republic. But he wasn't alone. From the shattered entrance, four other shadows emerged, each radiating a distinct, oppressive aura of dominance. The air in the room grew heavy, saturated with the pheromones of apex predators. "Take your hand off him, Kalen," a silky voice hissed from the shadows. Vesper, the Viper Syndicate head, stepped into the light, his movements fluid and unnerving. "The Genesis carrier belongs to the highest bidder, and my venom is already on the lock." Lysander realized with a jolt of ice-cold terror that he wasn't a person to them anymore. He was the prize. Part I. The Genesis carrier. The world had changed since the Great Mutation, but human greed remained a constant. Society was stratified not just by wealth, but by genetic predatory traits. The alphas, those with the blood of great beasts, ruled the megacities, their strength and aggression making them natural leaders in a brutal world. But the bloodlines were failing. Madness, degeneration, and sterility plagued the great houses. And Lysander, an unassuming geneticist working in the quiet sector of Sector 4, had accidentally discovered he carried the cure in his own marrow. He was a universal null, a genetic anomaly capable of stabilizing any beast bloodline. Now, the 5 most powerful men in the city were in his lab, circling him like sharks in bloody water. Kalen tightened his grip on Lysander, pulling him flush against his chest. The general was a wall of hard muscle, his body heat searing through Lysander's thin shirt. "He is under the protection of the military directorate," Kalen announced, his voice a low rumble that Lysander felt in his own spine. "This is not a negotiation." "Everything is a negotiation," drawled Darian, the patriarch of the Lion Pride. He stood near the door, leaning on a cane topped with a gold pommel, looking every bit the weary, arrogant king. "The military cannot hoard a resource of this magnitude. If the wolf claims him, the bear, the hawk, and the serpent will tear the city down to get him back." "Let them try," Kalen snarled, his upper lip curling to reveal elongated canines. "Stop." Lysander finally found his voice, though it cracked. "I am not a resource. I am a citizen, and I demand. You have no rights here, little scientist." Thorn, the massive leader of the Bear Industrial Union, stepped forward. He was 7 feet of scarred muscle, his presence sucking the oxygen out of the room. "You are the only vial of medicine in a dying world. The only question is who gets to drink first." The cruelty of the statement made Lysander's stomach turn. He looked at Kalen, searching for a flicker of humanity. Years ago, before Kalen had risen to general, they had studied at the same university. They had been friends. Perhaps something more, in the quiet moments between classes, before Kalen's bloodline manifested violently, and he vanished into the military academies. "Kalen," Lysander whispered, grabbing the lapels of the general's coat. "Please." Kalen looked down. For a second, the golden slit pupils widened, softening into something recognizable. Then, the mask of the general slammed back into place. "Forgive me," Kalen muttered. Before Lysander could process the apology, Kalen moved with blinding speed. He didn't fight the others. He didn't negotiate. He simply detonated a flashbang grenade he had pawned from his belt. The world turned white. A high-pitched ring shattered Lysander's equilibrium. He felt himself being lifted, tossed over a broad shoulder like a sack of grain, and then the sensation of wind rushing past him as Kalen shattered the remaining glass and jumped into the night. Part 2. The Gilded Cage. Lysander woke in a room that smelled of cedar and rain, scents that were artificially pumped in, but soothing nonetheless. The bed was enormous, the sheets silk. It was a stark contrast to the sterile white of his laboratory. He sat up, his head throbbing, and realized he was in the penthouse spire of the Wolf Directorate. He scrambled to the door. Locked. He went to the window. It looked down upon the neon-drenched sprawl of the city from a dizzying height. He was trapped. The door hissed open. Kalen entered, no longer in his tactical armor, but wearing a dark, tailored suit that barely contained the width of his shoulders. He carried a tray of food. "You're awake," Kalen said, his voice devoid of the growl from the night before. "You kidnapped me," Lysander accused, backing away until his legs hit the edge of the bed. "You abducted me from my workplace. That is a federal crime. The laws don't apply to us, Lysander. You know that." Kalen set the tray down. "Eat. You need your strength." "For what?" Lysander snapped. "For the breeding experiments? Is that what this is? You want to stabilize your bloodline so you can remain general?" Kalen flinched. It was a micro-expression, gone in an instant, but Lysander caught it. The Alpha turned, walking to the window, his hands clasped behind his back. "The other four. Vesper, Darian, Thorn, and RYX. They view you as a battery. A disposable item to be drained until you are empty," Kalen said softly. "Vesper would keep you in a medically induced coma to harvest your marrow. Thorn would chain you to a bed. And you?" Lysander challenged, crossing his arms. "You're keeping me in a tower. I am keeping you alive." Kalen turned, his eyes blazing. "Because if I don't claim you, they will kill each other for the right to destroy you. I brought you here to offer you a deal." Lysander narrowed his eyes. "What kind of deal?" "Marriage," Kalen stated flatly. "A political union. Under the old laws, if an Alpha mates and bonds with a null, the other clans cannot touch him without declaring total war. It grants you the status of a consort. Sovereignty. You want me to marry you to save myself from your rivals?" Lysander laughed bitterly. "That sounds like extortion, Kalen." "It is protection," Kalen roared, the beast surfacing. He took a step forward, closing the distance instantly, looming over Lysander. The sheer physical pressure of his aura was suffocating. Lysander trembled, his instincts screaming at him to submit, to bare his neck, but his mind rebelled. "I remember the boy who used to share his lunch with me because I was on a scholarship," Lysander whispered, looking up into the Predator's face. "Where is he?" Kalen's expression shattered. He reached out, his hand hovering near Lysander's cheek, trembling slightly. "That boy was weak. He couldn't protect anyone. I am what I need to be. So you'll force me?" "No." Kalen pulled his hand back, his jaw tight. "I won't touch you unless you ask for it. But you must wear my ring, and you must stay in my sight. The others are coming. They have called for a summit of the 5 beasts. If we do not present a united front tonight, they will tear you apart right there on the conference table." Part 3. The Summit of 5. The summit was held in the neutral zone, a massive circular chamber of obsidian and steel located in the heart of the city. The tension in the room was palpable, a physical weight that pressed down on Lysander's chest. He sat next to Kalen, dressed in a suit of deep midnight blue that Kalen had provided. It was cut to accentuate his slender frame, marking him clearly as the prize of the evening. Around the circular table sat the monsters. Thorn, the bear, was picking his teeth with a metal splinter, eyeing Lysander with hunger. RYX, the Hawk Alpha, watched with unblinking, bird-like intensity from behind dark aviators, his surveillance drones hovering silently in the corners of the room. Darian, the lion, looked bored, swirling a glass of brandy, while Vesper, the snake, smiled a smile that didn't reach his cold, dead eyes. "We are here to discuss the equitable distribution of the asset," Darian began, his voice smooth. "The asset has a name," Lysander said clearly. The table went silent. A null speaking out of turn at an Alpha summit was unheard of. Kalen's hand tightened on Lysander's thigh under the table, a warning, or perhaps support. Spirited, Vesper hissed. "I like that. It makes the breaking more fun." "There will be no distribution," Kalen said, his voice like grinding stones. "Lysander is my intended. We have initiated the courting protocols. Courting is not claiming, Arwaix pointed out, his voice sharp and airy. Unless you have marked him, unless the bond is sealed in blood and scent, he is fair game. And we all know, Kaelin, you are too noble to force a bond. That is your weakness. Thorn slammed his fist onto the table, denting the steel. Enough talk. I challenge for the right. Trial by combat. I second the challenge, Vesper said, sliding a dagger from his sleeve. Winner takes the null. Kaelin stood up, pushing his chair back. He moved in front of Lysander, a living shield. If you want him, you go through me. All of you. A 4-on-1 fight. Darian raised an eyebrow. Even you, the great wolf general, cannot survive that. Then I will die burying my teeth in your throats, Kaelin promised. The violence erupted instantly. Thorn charged, a juggernaut of momentum. Kaelin met him head-on, using the bear's own weight to flip him over the table. But Vesper was fast. He lunged, not at Kaelin, but at Lysander. Lysander scrambled back, but Vesper was faster. The snake alpha grabbed him by the hair, dragging him back, the knife pressed to his throat. Stand down, wolf, Vesper shrieked. Or I open him up right here. Kaelin froze. He was bleeding from a cut above his eye, his chest heaving. Thorn was recovering. Arwaix had drawn a pistol. Darian watched, calculating. Let him go, Kaelin growled, dropping to his knees in a show of submission that made Lysander's heart ache. Kaelin, the proudest man he knew, kneeling to scum like Vesper. Take my territory. Take my rank. Just let him go. I don't want your territory, Vesper sneered, tightening his grip on Lysander. I want the cure, and I want to watch you beg. Lysander looked at Kaelin. He saw the desperation, the raw, terrified love that had been buried under layers of duty and trauma for years. He realized then that Kaelin hadn't come back to possess him. He had come back to die for him. And Lysander, the weak scientist, realized he held the cards. You don't understand genetics, Vesper, Lysander said calmly, despite the blade at his throat. Vesper paused. What? My blood stabilizes the alpha strain, Lysander continued, his voice gaining strength. But if harvested forcibly, under high stress, the cortisol interacts with the genesis agent. It becomes a neurotoxin. The room went deadly silent. You're lying, Vesper hissed. Am I? Lysander met the snake's eyes. Kill me, or drain me, and you don't get a cure. You get a poison that will liquidate your nervous system in seconds. The only way the cure works is if the donor gives it willingly. He looked around the table at the stunned alphas. So, Lysander said, smoothing his jacket, if you want to survive the degeneration of your bloodlines, you need me alive, happy, and willing. And right now, the only one making me willing is him. He pointed at Kaelin. Vesper's hand trembled. He knew the science of the nulls was complex. He couldn't risk it. Slowly, he released Lysander. Lysander didn't run. He walked calmly over to Kaelin, who was still kneeling, looking up in awe. Lysander offered his hand. Get up, General, Lysander said softly. Kaelin took his hand and rose. The dynamic in the room shifted. The other alphas looked at each other, realizing their leverage was gone. This isn't over, Thorn grunted, nursing his bruised jaw. It is for tonight. Darian stood up, adjusting his cuffs. If the boy speaks the truth, we cannot force him. We will have to persuade him. One by one, the rival alphas retreated, leaving the wolf and his scholar alone in the wreckage of the summit room. Part 4. The True Claim. Back in the penthouse, the adrenaline faded, leaving them both exhausted. Kaelin sat on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands. You lied to them, Kaelin said, his voice muffled. About the toxin. I did, Lysander admitted, pouring 2 glasses of water. But they don't know that. Fear is a better leash than respect for men like them. Kaelin looked up. His face was bruised, his eyes tired. You saved us. You were ready to die for me, Lysander countered. He walked over and stood between Kaelin's spread knees. Why didn't you just tell me? Why play the villain? Because if you knew how much I loved you, Kaelin said, his voice breaking, you would have tried to save me sooner. And you would have gotten hurt. I couldn't risk that. I have loved you since university, Lysander. When my blood manifested, I left because I was afraid I would hurt you. I came back because I knew they would hurt you. Lysander reached out, his fingers tracing the sharp line of Kaelin's jaw. The air between them crackled, charged with years of unspoken longing and the residual heat of the danger they had just survived. You said you wouldn't claim me unless I asked, Lysander whispered. Kalen went still. I did. Well, Lysander leaned down, brushing his lips against the shell of Kalen's ear. The others are still out there. They will try again. We need the protection of the old laws. We need the bond. Do not do this for politics, Kalen warned, his hands gripping Lysander's waist, thumbs pressing into the soft flesh. If I bite you, if I mark you, it is forever. You are mine, and I am yours. There is no going back. I'm not doing it for politics. Lysander pulled back, looking deep into those golden, predatory eyes. I'm doing it because I'm tired of running. And I'm tired of sleeping alone. Kalen let out a sound that was half groan, half growl. He pulled Lysander down onto the bed, covering his body with his own. The weight was grounding, perfect. Are you sure? Kalen asked, his canines lengthening, hovering over the junction of Lysander's neck and shoulder. Claim me, Kalen, Lysander commanded softly. The bite was sharp, a sudden shock of pain that instantly melted into a rush of endorphins and heat. Lysander gasped, arching his back as he felt the bond snap into place, a golden tether connecting his soul to Kalen's. He could feel Kalen's fierce protectiveness, his adoration, his relief. Kalen pulled back, licking the drop of blood from the mark. He looked at Lysander with reverence. My mate, Kalen rumbled against his skin. My alpha, Lysander replied, threading his fingers through Kalen's hair. Outside, the city was still dangerous. The lion, the snake, the bear, and the hawk were still circling, plotting their next move. But inside the glass tower, the wolf had found his heart, and for the first time in history, the prize had captured the predator. And that is how the scholar tamed the beast, turning a hunt into a partnership that would shake the foundations of their world. If you enjoyed seeing Kalen go from a cold general to a desperate protector, destroy that like button. And tell me in the comments, in a world where you are a prize to be won, would you choose the monster who offers you a cage of gold, or would you risk death for freedom? I'll be reading your answers. Subscribe for the next chapter. Until then, prompt image. Prompt, masterpiece, best quality, high-res, 1.2. Korean manhwa style, semi-realistic, digital art, 2 men, BL, Yaoi, man 1. General Kalen, tall muscular man with wolf-like golden eyes, short dark messy hair, wearing torn tactical military suit, protective stance, sharp canines visible, bleeding slightly from forehead, intense expression, man 2. Lysander, slender scholar, wearing disheveled elegant blue suit, glasses slightly askew, standing behind man 1, hand on man 1's shoulder, calm, but defiant expression. Background is a shattered high-tech conference room, shards of glass and overturned steel table, dramatic cinematic lighting, shadows of other beastmen in the periphery, tension, romance, high contrast.